Once again, the majority of United Nations member states cast their votes in favor of the lifting of the United States blockade against Cuba. And Hurricane Melissa begins to leave eastern Cuba after hitting its eastern region, downgrading to Category 2. And on Monday, during the ordinary session of the National Assembly of Venezuela, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago was declared persona non grata. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We'll begin with the news. Most United Nations member states once again voted in favor of lifting the United States economic, commercial, and financial blockade against Cuba. During the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, 165 countries voted in favor of lifting the coercive and unilateral measure imposed by the United States for more than 6 decades. In the vote, 7 countries opposed ending the blockade, including the United States, Israel, Argentina, and Ukraine. In addition, 12 countries abstained. These results once again reaffirm the international community's historical commitment to ending U.S. aggression against the Cuban people. And following the main topic of this General Assembly of the United Nations, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cuba and Permanent Representative to the UN, Bruno Rodriguez Barrilla, said Cuba has faced more than 60 years of blockade.
It's not possible to hide the fact that by virtue of the United States government's criminal policy against Cuba, my country is viciously deprived in every corner of the world of the use of banking systems to make payments and collect funds. Cuba is deprived of access to sources of financing, investment capital, remittances, technology for its industry, food production, infrastructure, scientific development and services, including the most sensitive ones such as healthcare. The strategic aim of the blockade is to provoke a social breakdown that would lead to the breakdown of constitutional order that Cubans have decided to freely form in various referenda.
In this scenario, the UN Permanent Representative for Algeria reiterated his country's rejection of this unilateral measure, which hinders Cuba's progress towards sustainable development goals.
It continues to impose enormous hardship on the Cuban people and severely undermines Cuba's efforts to achieve the SDGs by 2030. We strongly oppose, by principle, the imposition of unilateral laws and decisions that affect the sovereignty and development of other states.
On the other hand, the permanent representative of the People's Democratic Republic of Laos, Thong Phain Savanphet, expressed his support for Cuba's self-determination in the face of the coercive measures imposed by the U.S. blockade.
Time when the world is facing unprecedented challenges, from widening inequalities and intensified geopolitical tensions to global health crisis and climate-related disasters, it is morally indefensible and politically unjustifiable to maintain coercive measures that exacerbate human suffering and restrict inclusive development. The Lao PDR strongly believes that no country should be denied the opportunity to chart its own development path free from external pressure and interference.
For his part, the Mexican representative Hector Vasconcelos denounced the U.S. blockade against Cuba and the application of the Helms-Burton law.
Mexico will always advocate for the peaceful settlement of disputes and therefore rejects sanctions and commercial blockades that only harm the well-being of peoples and do not build regions of peace or of prosperity. Mexico also categorically condemns the application of Title III of the law of the so-called Helms-Burton Act. This is a measure that affects not only the sovereignty of the Cuban people, but also the national interests of third countries.
We have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. After making landfall in Cuba early Wednesday morning, Category 3 Hurricane Melissa has begun to abandon Cuban territory after triggering devastating effects to different infrastructures. The center of Hurricane Melissa has been moving over the province of Holguín for the last 3 hours, with calm conditions reported in the municipalities of Puerto, Mayarí, and Banes, the latter of which is where the storm is heading to sea. The interaction of this system with Sierra Maestra mountain range and its movement over the national territory has continued to weaken it, with maximum sustained winds that have dropped to 165 kilometers per hour, with higher gusts, becoming a Category 2 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Melissa continues to move north-northeast at a speed of 22 kilometers per hour. The areas of rain and storms associated with the hurricane are affecting the eastern region of Cuba, where they have become strong and intense in some locations. In recent hours, significant accumulations of 335.2 millimeters were recorded at the Holguín Meteorological Center and 268.4 millimeters at the Guaro Weather Station, both in the province of Holguín. The rains are expected to continue during Melissa's passage, with accumulations between 200 and 350 millimeters in the next 24 hours. And as Hurricane Melissa completes its passage through eastern Cuba, President Miguel Díaz-Canel sent a message to the people on his social media. On Telegram, the president said it has been a very difficult early morning. There has been extensive damage, and Hurricane Melissa is still over Cuban territory. I ask our people not to let their guard down, to remain disciplined, and to continue to take shelter. As soon as conditions allow, we will begin recovery efforts. We are ready. President Díaz-Canel added, "We have been in communication throughout the night with the first secretaries of the party in the eastern provinces. The last communication took place just a few minutes ago. The situation remains under control. We have prepared for the worst-case scenario, and the measures taken have been effective." And Hurricane Melissa, classified as one of the most powerful cyclones ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin, made landfall in Jamaica on Tuesday afternoon, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The storm, which reached Category 5 and generated extreme winds, torrential rainfall, and storm surges, represented a challenge to the response systems of the Jamaican authorities. Visual records show cars swept away by the flow, roads covering rubble, and rural areas cut off by overflowing rivers. And in communities such as New Hope, residents recorded how the rain fell relentlessly and the winds uprooted century-old trees, breaking the asphalt and blocking access to entire towns. The humanitarian organization Mercy Corps, which operates in several regions of the island, reported that many families remained in their homes during the hurricane and described a night marked by constant noise and widespread fear. In this context, Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness declared the country a disaster area on Tuesday. The declaration came under the Disaster Risk Management Act following the recommendations of the competent authorities. At the same time, the Minister of Industry, Investment and Trade, Obin Hill, issued an order to prevent price speculation during the emergency. And the Dominican Republic still suffers the impact of Hurricane Melissa after its passage through the territory when it was still a tropical storm. The powerful storm left at least one dead and one missing. Authorities caution on the existing risk of new flooding and landslides. Many communities were provided with food delivered by drones, although the emergency level has decreased in many areas. And in other news, at least 26 people were injured when they reacted in panic to the collapse of several buildings following a 6.1 magnitude earthquake west of Turkey. According to the authorities' report, citizens were injured after jumping out of windows or running away in a hurry in the province of Balıkesir. In this regard, Turkish Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya assured that there were no fatalities after the earthquake that occurred on Monday night. In this context, and on the instructions of the government, teams from the Provincial Directorate of the Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change remain deployed to assess the damage caused while removing debris in the affected areas. We have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. The final break, don't go away. Welcome back. Gaza Strip authorities reported several Israeli airstrikes and bombings across the Palestinian enclave on Tuesday, leaving at least 100 people dead, including 46 children. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the army to carry out powerful attacks against the devastated Palestinian enclave. The attacks targeted homes and refugee camps, mainly in Han Yunis in southern Gaza, violating the ceasefire agreement. In this scenario, civil defense teams continue search and rescue operations for bodies and injured people among the rubble. According to the Gaza Government Information Office, since the ceasefire came into effect, at least 211 Palestinians have been killed and 597 wounded due to Zionist forces attacks. The Palestinian Civil Defense denounced a grave humanitarian injustice, the entry of heavy machinery into the Gaza Strip to recover the bodies of Israeli hostages, while tens of thousands of Palestinian bodies remain trapped under the rubble. Agency spokesman Mahmoud Basal expressed his indignation that some agencies and organizations have brought in the heavy equipment necessary to search for the bodies of Israeli captives, while there is no machinery available to recover the bodies of 10,000 Palestinian citizens under the rubble. Basal emphasized that the recovery of each body can take up to 12 hours of work, and that the extent of the destruction requires a much more robust infrastructure. In other topics, in the United States, the Senate approved a measure ending the national emergency declaration invoked to impose tariffs on Brazilian products. Legislators approved the measure with 52 votes in favor and 48 against, after some of the legislators emphasized that such trade measures affect U.S. consumers. The national emergency was declared by U.S. President Donald Trump in July in retaliation for the indictment of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, accused of attempting a coup d'etat. The Senate's action takes place while the U.S. President is on a 5-day tour of Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, and China. The House is expected to approve other legislative measures to end Trump's tariffs against Canada and other countries around the world this week. And in Brazil, at least 80 people died on Tuesday in Rio de Janeiro's most deadly police operation ever, which targeted a mayor gun days before the city hosts global events related to the United Nations Climate Summit known as COP30. Throughout the day, ambulances transported injured civilians and officials to the Getulio Vargas State Hospital in Rio de Janeiro. Among them was Agent Marcos Vinicius de Carvalho, who died upon arrival at the hospital due to gunshot wounds. According to health authorities, the hospital was overwhelmed after the arrival of the injured, whose number exceeded 80. The so-called contention operation mobilized about 2,500 security forces in the favelas of Alemão and Peña. The National Assembly of Venezuela unanimously declared the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamla Persal persona non grata for her complicity with the United States in its aggressions against Venezuela. The decision, backed by all political sectors in Parliament, was a resounding response to the government of Trinidad and Tobago's decision to open its doors to U.S. military forces responsible for criminal acts in the Caribbean. The President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, emphasized the decision and supported all the measures agreed by the National Executive to denounce and suspend all energy agreements signed with Trinidad and Tobago in response to the country's submissive behavior towards a foreign power.
Trinidad and Tobago praises the United States attack and calls for the elimination of all drug traffickers because the rule of law no longer exists, because international relations cease to exist, because international law is being brushed aside, and this lady should read a little about the history of Trinidad and Tobago, so she knows how empires treat their colonies. So they know how Trinidad and Tobago was exchanged for Minorca in the Treaty of Amiens, because it belonged to the Captaincy General of Venezuela, and how, after some skirmishes and battles between England and Spain, the two kings shaked hands yes, and how they exchanged them like trump cards. Give me Trinidad and Tobago, and I'll give you Minorca back. That is the fate of the colonies when they no longer serve the purposes of Marco Rubio. They will be discarded like rubbish. They will be exchanged for currency as they did in 1798 with Trinidad and Tobago. You should learn from your own history that this is the devil's embrace, that this will only lead to suffering and more acute poverty for the people of Trinidad.
The President of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, also assured that for years Venezuela was generous with Trinidad and Tobago in terms of hydrocarbons.
We don't need gas from Venezuela. When the mouse arrives, we'll see if you don't need gas from Venezuela.
Vamos a ver si no fue generoso como lo fue ese acuerdo.
We'll see if it wasn't as generous as that energy agreement signed between one of the largest gas reserves on the entire planet, located in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and a country that has completely depleted its gas reserves.
In the fertile lands of the state of Aragua, banana, or cambur as it is called in Venezuela, is not only a fundamental pillar of the local cuisine, but also a source of employment that boosts the local and national economy. Our colleague Alvaro Fragua, who continues to explore this great country, brings us the following report.
Under optimal conditions of sunlight and humidity, plantains and bananas have become the heart of the economy in Santa Cruz de Aragua. Behind every fruit lies an organized community that lives from the land, and in it has found a future.
All the staff are around here on the farm. They're all locals, from different towns, some from Lamas, and even some from Sucre. Right now, we have about 70 direct workers, and with indirect ones, we reach around 120.
Each bunch requires precise care. The cut becomes art. Farmers learn from a young age how to cut, clean, and select the fruit, respecting the cycles of nature. It's hard work, but full of pride.
To cut the bunch that's ready for harvest. Look, these leaves will be trimmed to make it easier to cut the bunch. The rope here, a small knot. All the leaves. Then he comes. Come and lift it. It's cut high so that this stem will feed the sprout. That's coming up. That one will be ready for the second harvest.
On the farms, women are also key. Their work and joy make the harvest a collective task, where production blends with daily life and family ties.
Yes. Well, they're almost like my family because I work with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. And yes, we have fun here. We tell jokes, gossip, everything. We talk about a bit of everything.
Once cut, the plantain is washed and prepared for distribution throughout the country, but also to Curaçao, Aruba, and Bonaire. With a stable weekly production, workers are already thinking about the next step, global export.
We're ready because we follow a cycle, a weekly harvest cycle. We already have a production plan for 3 to 4 years, and if we keep it up, with God's help, we'll last much longer. With the management we've achieved, and the quality of fruit we are harvesting for the national market, we are now ready to export this fruit worldwide and open new horizons with the good work and careful handling we've achieved.
A challenge filled with perseverance and ambition that we at teleSUR will continue to follow closely.
With this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. With teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.